Okay, guys, so this is the lecture for Chapter 5, Section 1. We're going to be learning about supply. Okay, so last week we learned about demand, or the last couple weeks we learned about demand, right? Well, in economics, there's supply and demand that's really driving everything that we do. Okay, so what is supply? Remember, guys, anything that's in green you guys need to write down, anything that's in red you guys do not need to write it down, but it's still important to know. So first, let's get started with the warm-up. Go ahead and answer this question in your notes. Just go ahead and answer it. You guys don't have to worry about the question. So now for the second question, I want you guys to read this. A small town near Quartzsite, Arizona is expecting a recent spike of new residents moving into the area. Okay? Given that situation, what are some possible shortcomings that this could produce or this could cause on the producer side? Okay? I want you guys to think of the goods and services that a small market might have available to them to sell. Okay, I want you to think about that when you're answering this question, okay? So, hopefully, you guys talked about supply. Well, we're going to lead right into it with the law of supply. Okay, supply, like I said earlier, is the other half of the supply and demand equation for economics. Okay, just like demand, where you need the willingness and the ability to buy it, supply is the same thing. It needs willingness and ability for the producers to offer these goods and services. Okay? Anybody who provides a good service is a producer. And price is a major factor that influences supply. Guys, like I've been saying in chapter 1 all the way to now. Excuse me. Like I've been saying in chapter 1 all the way to now, if they aren't making a profit, they aren't going to be selling that good or service. Everything that the producers are doing is aimed at making a profit. The law of supply states, you guys should have had this written down in your intro work, so you don't need to write it. Producers are willing to sell more of a good or service at a higher price than at a lower price. The idea is to make a profit. Okay? And price and amount supplied have a direct relationship. It's not like demand where it has an inverse relationship, okay? Supply schedules. All right, guys, so like stated in chapter 4, demand has schedules and graphs. Well, supply is no different. Supply has these schedules just like demand does. Okay? Supply schedules is showing the amount of it shows law of supply but in a table. It's easier to see it. Okay? Supply schedules is how much an individual is willing to supply at a specific price. So let's think of Pepsi. All right. When you guys go to a gas station, you know you could get a 20 ounce Pepsi for what? $2? Okay? You know you could do that. Pepsi knows that they could sell a certain amount of Pepsi for $2 at that price. So, what happens if they rose the prices up to $3 but supplied even more? Would they make the same amount of money? Okay? There's a market supply schedule, just like in demand, that shows all producers and what they're willing to supply at a specific price. This could be all sodas in general: Coke, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, Sprite, and the list keeps going. Okay? The left hand column is always going to be the price, and the right hand column is always going to be the quantity supplied. Okay? Change in these prices, or change in price, changes willingness to supply. Okay? So going back to the Pepsi idea, we know we could get a Pepsi for $2. Let's say they had to lower their price to $1. You think they're going to supply the same amount? Probably not, because they aren't going to be making that same amount of money that they are at $2. So they're going to supply less. That way they can cut back on their costs and still continue to earn that profit. Okay? And then finally, our supply curves. Guys, supply curves are just like in demand with demand curves. There's two types, market and individual, and they show the same thing that's on the schedules. Okay, so in this case, we're talking about supply curves. Well, supply curves are going to be showing the same information that the graph shows. Okay, these graphs do the best job of showing a direct relationship between price and quantity supplied. It is always constructed with the idea that all factors remain constant, but it's not always a reality. We know that factors don't remain constant. Price, quantity supplied, income, we know that that stuff isn't staying constant. We can see that in today's world with the gas prices going up by what seems to be 20 cents every day. And the law of supply is followed by maximizing profits. Maximizing profits is the ultimate goal. Okay, if you guys are going into business after high school, you guys' ultimate goal is to be wealthy, to make that money. Okay, now for your ticket out, I want you guys to go ahead and reproduce this in your notes. So go ahead and pause it and reproduce this in your notes on the next available page. I want it to be fairly big. Okay, I want you to list out 4 concepts of each on each of the outside circles. So label 1 supply and label 1 demand, and list 4, at least 4, okay, on each side. And then in the middle, just go ahead and label it somewhere similarities, and I want you guys to list at least 3, okay? Guys, I'm going to be checking this when I check your guys' lecture notes.